Here's why they'll never get rid of Social Security. And all these people saying, don't use Social Security in your planning. I think it's evil, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it's evil. They're never going to get rid of Social Security. And we're just going to look at the history and I'll go into why they won't. It's not going to happen. Anyway, so this is from right here. The committee right here is in 1933 when they're talking about the Social Security Act. The Committee for Economic Security is what it's called. The Committee for Economic Security. We got this guy named Dr. Witt, who I believe was the head of the Committee for Economic Security. This is a proposal they had in terms of how we're going to get a Social Security benefit. They didn't call it Social Security as we know it now, but that's what it became. And here's what he said. Again, this is in 1933. Committee for Economic Security. Before Social Security was actually signed into law in 1935. Dr. Witt says, I want to make one further observation that I think is fundamental to understandings. This is his testimony, I believe, to Congress about the pending Social Security legislation. Let's see. I think it's fundamental in understanding the problem that the cost of supporting old people is necessarily very great, whether met by themselves or by somebody else. At present, life expectancy of a man who is 65 years old still has, in the average, 11 or 12 years ahead of him. A woman, 15 years. So he's, interesting. Remember that I say, they signed Social Security because the average life expectancy was 62 and Social Security didn't kick in until 65. That is such a fake. People who say that are fake. That drives me crazy. Because he says right here that life expectancy of a man who is 65, this is in 1933, was 11 years old. So even 11 more years. Even back then, a man was expected to live to 77 or 78. All right, a woman was expected to live till she was 80, even back then, once you were 65. It's gone up a number of years, but not that much relative to what it was in 1933. So all these people say, they never thought they'd have to pay. Anytime you hear that, just get the hell out of here, because that's such freaking fake. I hate it. It's like infantile stuff. They never wanted to pay anybody. That's why he said the life expectancy, you had to get 65 to get Social Security when the average life expectancy was 62. It's just life expectancy. The average life expectancy at birth was 62. We're talking about people who are already 65. It drives me freaking batty. Give me the bat. Give me the bat, Marge. Give me the bat. Give me the bat. All right. A large percentage of the aged are dependent upon others for support. Estimates prior to the Depression, selected studies in different states indicated that from 30 to 50% of the aged were dependent, in the whole or in part, upon the support of others. At this time, as a result of the Depression, that percentage has undoubtedly risen. The old people have lost their savings, just like many other people, and for old people, this means an irreparable loss. Irreparable. That does not mean that this number of people dependent on the public support. In a newspaper account for which I noted this morning, the committee's report was so interpreted. The great number of old people who are dependent have been, and we expect will continue to be supported by their children. So basically, a newspaper is saying, we're going to get the government's got to support all these people. And he's saying, no. That's not what we're saying. The great number of old people who are dependent have been, and we expect will continue to be supported by their children. Again, it's a sandwich generation. We've never seen this before. We have seen this before. Throughout humanity, we have the sandwich generation. You got to take care of your kids, got to take care of your parents. It's just this. It frustrates me because we've had a small sample of like basically 1950 to about 1990 or so. That was just boom times, dude. Yeah, even about 2000, just boom times. And everyone's like, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's not the way it's supposed to be. It's never been like that. It's always been a sandwich generation. And then they say, well, the kids can't leave their house until they're 25. What's wrong with that? What's wrong? I mean, I don't understand. What's wrong with their kids if they can't find work or they're going to save up money staying in your home? That's the way it's always been. Your kids, unless they marry off at 17 like some of the older folks did, the richer people, but it's just what's wrong with them living in your house until they have more money saved and can buy their own home? I don't understand why we have this one tiny frame reference of 1950 to basically 2000. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's never been like that. It's crazy. What's wrong with their kids staying at home? Anyway, right here. The great number of old people who are dependent have been and we expect to be continued by their children. Right. This bill does not contemplate that where children are able to support their parents, they should not do so, i.e., we're not going to replace children supporting their parents with Social Security. This bill does contemplate that where old people do not have means to support themselves and no children able to support them, they shall be supported by the public in a decent and humane way through a pension system. At present, the picture is something of this kind. There are about 100,000 old people in public almshouses, a slightly larger number in private institutions for the aged, many of whom are paying their own way. All right. And then he talks about, at this time, there are about 180,000 people who are pensioned under general state pension laws. There are approximately 700,000 people over the age of 65 who are on federal emergency relief. Are you hearing that? The number of people who are on state pensions is 180,000. We also have 140,000 in industrial pensions, 45,000 people in the United States government pensions, and 3,000 under state retirement accounts. A considerable number we cannot state indefinitely are firemen's and police pensions, and a much larger number are in receipt of veterans pensions. Either way, you can see the number of people on pensions relative to the number of people in almhouses and in private institutions, pretty close, but then it gets worse. Because we got 700,000 people over 65 years old of age who are on the federal emergency relief at this time, mostly as members of families rather than independent units. And there are, in some parts of the country, a considerable number of old people who are on relief entirely from local services who are not included in the federal emergency relief list. On relief in one form or another are probably somewhat less, between 8 and 900,000 people. This is the largest group of the age that are not supported by their own children and who are dependent. You see how many people were on support by some kind of service? You think we're going to go back to that by getting rid of Social Security? You're freaking nuts, dude. Those are the extremes. There are property qualifications in all of the laws. Interesting. Nowhere are pensions paid where an applicant has more than $3,000 worth of property. The limit is lower in some states. The maximum pension is commonly $30 a month. That's the max. Sometimes expressed as $1 a day, but there are none that are higher. There are some that are lower. For instance, North Dakota has a maximum of $150 per year. The pensions actually averaged about $19 in 1933. So even those people who had pensions, not very many, they averaged $19 a month, which is about $400 in today's maybe $500 in today's purchasing power. And if you had assets more than $3,000, and that seems like a very small amount back then, but it's it's a hell of a lot more than it is today. You didn't get any pension whatsoever, none. That's it. The average pension was $19 a month. Again, the equivalent of about $450, which is rounded, split the difference today. And if you had a house that's worth more than $3,000, you didn't have anything pension. Isn't that crazy? Let's keep going. The average range from $24 in Massachusetts to $8 in Colorado. Interesting. All right. There are included within the pension laws at the present time, these are pension laws of the states, more than 2/3 of the total population of the country. That is, the states that have pension laws that are operative have more than 2/3 of the entire population, and Massachusetts and New York being the biggest ones. And you can see right here, the average pension in Massachusetts, if you had one, was $24, and New York is $22, equivalent of $500 to $550 a month back then. Let's see. For instance, England has both right here. As for foreign countries, most of the European countries have contributory old age annuity systems under which annuities are paid, toward which contributions are made by the employers, the employees, and sometimes the government. Quite a few countries, in addition, have non-contributory pension systems. For instance, England has both a contributory annuity system and a non-contributory, and a contributory means you pay into it, and your employer does as well. England started with just a non-contributory system, i.e. just backed by the federal dollar, essentially, the U.S., the English. You didn't have to put anything to it, they just gave you the pension. Let's see. England started with a non-contributory pension system for people in need. Just as our American states have started with a non-contributory pension for people in need. The cost became so great that in 1925, England supplemented the non-contributory pension with a contributory annuity pension. France has the same experience. In England, the non-contributory pension is 10 shillings a week, half a pound, or about $202.50 a week. That's $10 a month, my friends. Back then, $10 a month. That's like $200 a month today. In Canada, the pension is $20 a month at this time, shared by the Dominion and the provisional governments. Anyway, the point being is we had so many people in poverty that they're doing whatever they could to get these people out of poverty. All right. The non-contributory old age pensions will necessarily vary with the need of the individual. For an old couple that owns his home does not need to be provided with enough for rent, whereas an old couple that does not must be given rent. All right, so they're saying, hey, we're going to base it based on your assets. I don't like that, but that's what they're doing. That's a non-contributory pension, by the way, which makes sense. Supplemental security income, because you didn't pay anything to it, is welfare. It's a question of the circumstances under which they live in each case, and obviously the needs of the old people will vary in different communities. And likewise, we have to contemplate that this depression has created a tremendous havoc with people's savings. The people that are now middle-aged or more, or at least many of them, are completely wiped out. They only have a short period of life in which they can make adequate provision for their old age. The situation that we are facing in the immediate future certainly is a great deal worse because of the depression that we have been in. So we're never getting rid of Social Security because we're never going to go back to that. Now, Social Security is contributory, i.e. you pay 6.2%, your employer pays 6.2%, I pay 12.4% because I'm self-employed, and that dog does not like that, and Finny does not like that dog barking. So I pay a lot of money towards my Social Security. That's a fact, and as such, I expect to receive a lot of money back, unequivocally. Now, whether or not that's too much, we should put a cap on that, that's a different argument. But they're never getting rid of Social Security, just not. And Social Security isn't based on assets. You could have $8 billion and still get a base Social Security. That's the way it should be because it's contributory. Now, on the other hand, supplemental security income is different. That you shouldn't be based on assets or wealth or anything like that because that's for poor people, indigent people. Indigent? Ignorant. That's ignorant. Indigent. Anyway, they're never getting rid of it. They'll probably put a cap on it at some point. I got no problem with that, man. You put a cap on that. That's I got shaving cream in my ear. I just shaved. I'm looking fresh. Look at that. I got a little zit right there, dude. What the hell, man? I'm freaking 55 years old, still getting zits. Your old buddy Josh. What the hell, dude? I got roid rage. Anyway, so stop you not using Social Security in your planning. They're never getting rid of it. It's just dumb, and people say they are. Just chill in the freaking pound sand. All right, God bless. We'll see you. Smash. For Stuart out there, fondle the Stuart button. We're called the Stuart button. Fondle the Stuart button. All right, God bless.